Hi there, it's Jenna from scribblinggrace.com. Today I'm going to show you how to paint a loose watercolor peony. So I'm going to show you a few times on my watercolor paper here, and then I will show you a process video of me creating these peonies in my Bible for a Bible journaling page. So I have my watercolor paper, I have my Kiritake Ganza Tambi watercolor set that I grabbed a red color out of, and I have a size 10 round paintbrush. I just use cheap synthetic round paintbrushes from the craft store, the ones that come in the packs, and then I have some water. So I'm going to try my best to explain as well as I can how to create this flower. I think it's kind of one of those flowers that you need to just kind of watch and do your best to emulate. It's harder to explain it, but hopefully by watching it you can understand what I mean. So I'm going to start off by painting 2 petals. And to create my petals, I'm just going to kind of swipe, swipe, swipe to create somewhat of a ovally shape. I'm going to go ahead and do one more petal right here next to it. I'll fix that. And try to connect it a little bit. I'm leaving some white space between these 2 petals. But this is the center of my peony where I'm going to try to connect all of my petals for the most part. So those are my 2 petals there. Now I'm going to go ahead and when you look at a peony, you can, in the center of the peony, there's all of those little petals that are all squished together in the center. And so I'm going to try to give a little visual of those petals here. So I'm just going to create some swiggles at the top. Swiggle, swiggle, swiggles around those 2 petals. Now I'm going to go ahead and hug these swiggles that I just created. I'm going to create 2 somewhat small petals that just kind of hug those swiggles. Okay, and now I'm going to add in a few more petals. So I'm going to add a petal right here, start it right up here, and I'm just applying very little pressure, and then as I'm going down I'm applying more pressure, but I'm just trying to work fast and just use that tip of my brush to create the shape that I want. So these petals are just trying to kind of round out around the petals that I already created. Now let's go ahead and grab a little bit more pigment, a little more water. And now I'm going to create some of those bottom petals that are a little bit farther away, a little looser. So I'm just going to create more of a kind of U-shape type of petal here. Create one more that kind of will go in between those. And I didn't love this shape, so I'm just going to go back over it, try to fix that up a little bit, create more of a shape that I want, and then I'll create one more petal down here, nice and big. And so now I'm going to go ahead and just add a few more little swipes of my paintbrush to kind of give a couple more petals that are in that background there. And that's it. So that's my peony. So let's do another one. So again, I just picked up some paint, some water. I'm just going to swipe, swipe, swipe to create a sort of ovalish shape. Swipe, swipe, swipe again, create another one, add in those swiggles. I'm going to hug the swiggles. Grab a little bit more paint, a little more water, create another petal up back here. We'll do one up here. And then, because I want this one to be a little bit higher, I'm going to go ahead and just add on a little bit more paint. Just go back over it. I'll add a couple more swipes up here and here. Just kind of dabbing my brush onto the page to create those last few petals. And because I want a little bit more color in my petals right here, I'm just going to add a little bit more paint to the center. I'll just go over this petal one more time. And then I want these little squiggles to be a little darker too, so I'm just gonna darken those up, go over them with a little bit more color. So I'm just gonna quickly show one more peony shape, and I just want to point out that I am not a professional artist. I'm just completely self-taught, and this is just how I do a peony shape, and I've been asked quite a few times to show how I do this shape, so that's why I'm creating this video today. And for me, moving faster works a lot better with this. I think it's important to just kind of be loose, just let your brush do the work. Try not to focus too much on creating the perfect shapes, because flowers are not perfect. So this is just how I do peony, and then now I'm going to go ahead and just add in some stems and leaves. So just taking my green color and making some very basic leaf shapes, and that's it. So I also want to point out that all of the supplies that I'm using are all listed in the blog post that goes along with this video at scribblinggrace.com/watercolor peony, and I'll put that link in the description below. All right, and so now I'm going to go ahead and switch on over to my Bible, and I'll show you really quickly just how I'm using this same shape to create a Bible journaling page. So to create my Bible journaling page, I'm using my NIV Journal the Word journaling Bible here. If you're not aware, journaling Bibles are Bibles that have wider margins and slightly thicker pages than a normal Bible, so materials don't bleed through as much. I do not prepare my page with anything, no gesso or watercolor ground or anything. I just watercolor directly on my page, and I've never had any bleed through issues with my Kuretake Gansai Tambi watercolors, so that's just personal preference. I just like the way that the watercolor reacts to the page directly rather than with page prep or anything underneath it. The watercolors do definitely react differently than they do on watercolor paper, so that's something to keep in mind, especially if you're used to working on watercolor paper. It can be quite an adjustment. You'll see that the watercolors kind of pool together in certain areas, and that's okay. That's just par for the course, kind of. So I'm just creating the peony shapes just like I did before on my watercolor paper, and adding in some leaves. I got a little carried away with the leaves, and I didn't love the way that I added them, so I just kept adding more, kept going, added a peony at the bottom. So one of the things I really want to point out is that even if you're in the middle of a page and it looks so weird to you, just keep going and just have fun with the process. Even if your page turns out not anything like you expected it to, it's still beautiful, and I just want to encourage you to just appreciate what you're creating and appreciate the process, because it's all to worship and glorify God. That's the whole point. So to finish off my page, I'm just drying it with my heat gun, and then I'm going to use my Tombow Food no Suke brush pen to add in some lettering. I'm going to write out Holy Spirit, Promised in Faith. And I talk more about the verse that I'm working on in that blog post that goes along with this video at scribblinggrace.com/watercolor peony. And again, all of the supplies that I've been using are also linked in that blog post as well. And that's I'm going to put that in the description below. So I also have some tutorials on hand lettering, and I'll link all of those as well in the description below, so go check those out. I am definitely no professional watercolor artist, but I do love to share what I know, so I hope that you enjoyed this video. If you did, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel if you haven't already. I'm going to go ahead and flip the page over so you can see the back side. Again, I did not prep my page, and there's no bleed through. There's some ghosting or shadow from the brush pen, but that's kind of par for the course. Most inks will completely bleed through your page, but the Tombow Food Nosuke does not bleed at all. It just ghosts a bit. So I hope that answers any questions, and I hope you have a wonderful day. God bless.